Hey y'all, it's Ryan, and we're back with some Out of the Park Baseball 22 Rockies franchise series. I have not simulated ahead because I did want to go through the comments. Two things real quick. Number one, I'm sorry that this episode is going up so late today. I ran into some issues with my microphone, so I basically had to unplug and rewire my entire microphone and audio interface setup in my room. Which took some time. I had to do some troubleshooting, but I think I figured everything out now, which is why this episode is so late. Number two, if you would like to see me live stream Out of the Park Baseball 22, let me know down in the comments below. I think it would be a lot of fun, a lot of live interaction. I think would be really neat. I'd be streaming over on Twitch, so I could tell you guys how to get there. And if you, for whatever reason, you guys missed a live stream, I would also upload them to this channel at some point, maybe like a few days later. That way, y'all could keep up with it too. But basically, those were the two things. Number one, I'm sorry this was so late. I had issues with my microphone. Number two, if you'd like to see me live stream Out of the Park Baseball, if you think that could be fun, leave a comment down below. That way I can see if there's any interest for it or not, and then we can get the ball rolling on that. With that said, it is still the off season. The assistant GMs, I asked for their input, and they gave me their input, the assistant GMs of the YouTube community. So let's go through some comments here, and let's get going with Out of the Park Baseball 22, Episode 11. DeGrom only pitched about 50 innings in 22, so must have picked up some kind of big injury, and has a tendency in any save I've played to pick up multiple long-term injuries. Sign him at your peril. So this is a fair point. This is a really good observation by Connor Swain. So if we go to free agents and we go to Jacob DeGrom, I didn't even notice this. I'm glad he pointed it out that he only pitched 53 and 2/3 innings. He did well in those 53 and 2/3 innings, but if you go to the injury history, he suffered ulnar nerve entrapment, so that made him be out for 4 to 5 months, and then he had a one-day hamstring strain. But that 4 to 5 month injury was the big one, so maybe that's why kind of his contract demand is a little down. That injury combined with his age, maybe that could be an issue. So that is something that we do have to consider. Jacob DeGrom, 34 years old. We're gonna give him a pretty sizable contract, not a superstar big money contract, but still that is a lot of money to invest in a pitcher, especially a pitcher that did have an injury like that a season ago. So that is something that we're going to have to take into consideration. I signed DeGrom in my Philly save and won the World Series in 23. Clevenger is a fine second option. No offense players really jumped out at me. Maybe look for a high contact speed guy to replace Gallo and Didi. So if you missed the last episode, we do need to get if we go to lineups, we do need to get a shortstop. We do need to get a catcher, and we do need to get someone to replace Joey Gallo. It could be Blackman, and we could get a new DH, or we could just get an outfielder and let Blackman stay at DH. So we have a couple options. Jacob DeGrom for just over $20 million a year is an absolute bargain. I think Josh Bell might be a good DH if you can get him for cheap. So that is a name that we'll have to watch out for. This is an awesome comment. I always love seeing comments like this. If you can get Clev for something like 4 years, $70 million, I think you should do it. He'll be productive enough as a number 2 starter to justify it. And if it can raise his AAV and get him for 3 years, even better. DeGrom is a huge gamble. His ratings might drop all the way this offseason. As I said, that is something that we're going to have to keep in consideration about DeGrom. 2-year deal at max and try to squeeze a vesting or team option on year 2. Sale personality is selfish. Stay away. I am a big team chemistry guy. As you can see, I do kind of try to make it a point to just only have personalities here on the left side, captain, leader, spark plug, and prankster. I really try my best not to have any personalities on the right side. If they do, if I have one or two, I deal with it if they're good enough to justify keeping them on the roster. But for the most part, I really try to avoid guys like that. So I think that's a good observation for sale. Catcher Christian Vasquez, please, even if his bat isn't the greatest, his amazing defense will make up for it. Or maybe take a look around the league to trade for someone like Carson Kelly or Ali Sanchez. Baez is only looking for $10 million. A 3 to 4 year deal would be ideal too. A defensive shortstop who kills left-handed pitching is an okay signing for $10 million AAV. So if we go to the free agency and we go to Javier Baez, he shouldn't be super far. Oh, okay, yeah, it's only batters. So you can see that in this save, he has not done very well, but he's still been a positive value player on the back of his defense. And I am of the mindset that your shortstop doesn't really have to be an offensive dynamo. I think shortstop, the defense is the bigger contribution, and I'd like to think that if he could play half of his games in cores, he'd provide really, really good defense, obviously, but then I think he could probably get his OPS over 700, and I think that trade-off, a 700 OPS for elite defense, I think that's probably a fair trade-off, and as this guy says, for $10 million, It's not the worst option we have in the back pocket for a replacement shortstop. Buxton was the only free agent that caught my eye for outfield. Just one Silver Slugger, but I was looking for 33 million as is fragile, so no. And I would 100% agree. I really try to stay away from people who have injury proneness that is not at least normal. This is a perfect chance for you to trade for a star. Your team has a lot of good players, but no stars. I would even argue that Gallo wasn't a star as well. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It made the owner happy, but when I think of star outfielders, my first instinct is in Gallo. You have a good farm system. Use it to get someone big. We do actually have a good farm system. If we go to reports and info and then minor league system rankings, we are still in the top 5. We have Delgado, Clark, Leiter, Romo, and Veen all in the top 100. And then we have a lot of other solid guys that are not in the top 100. So we do have a number of prospects that we could use to really make a splash if we wanted to in the trade market. I think the Rays missed the playoffs, right? So if we go to MLB and we go to standings, and yes, they did. They finished 85 and 77 out of the playoff race. If so, take a look at Meadows, maybe Kyle Tucker if he's good in this save, maybe a top prospect who's ready to debut next season. Outfield is the most stacked place in baseball, so I'm sure you can find a good trade somewhere. And I agree, there's always good outfielders to be found in Major League Baseball, whether it's the free agent market, the trade market. So we'll find someone definitely to put in right field or somewhere in the outfield. Also use Welker at third base and move Vlade over the first base. Welker's infield defense is better than Vlade, so we've done that too. You can see Welker's now at third base, and Vlade is our first baseman. So that was a good comment. Could sign Scope and play Edman at shortstop. That's a possibility. Not sure what his defensive ratings are there. Javi Baez's demand seems low, so another Javi Baez. So that might be worth taking a look at as well. Kana, Benintendi could be viable inexpensive Gallo replacements. That's a good point. I know the bullpen pitched very well, but adding someone like Hader for the $3 million he's asking for seems too good to pass up. So let's take a look here at the free agent market, and we'll go to all players, and Josh Hader is right there, and you can see that he only does want $3 million for a demand. He is an extreme fly ball power pitcher, but, a guy like Josh Hader, he is very good. He is a fan fave. He struggled a little bit in 2022, a 4.80 ERA, a 5.08 FIP, a 3.49 ERA, and a 3.59 FIP. So, I mean, he's a guy that we'll take a look at, but the extreme fly ball definitely scares me just a little bit. But we'll see how the offseason goes. I never want to say no. Starting pitching market seems super thin, so you may have to take a chance on a Sale, Clevenger, or meet DeGrom. My 8 is the man. P.S. I look forward to these videos every day. Thank you. Great 2022, Ryan. Thank you. To make the next step, you have to get DeGrom, and then I would go for Dansby Swanson at shortstop, and maybe someone like Mitch Haniger to platoon, there we go, in right field with Blackman. Also, who do you have at AAA to maybe break into the bigs? Love the series. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Great improvement from last season. Got to look to take that wild card spot next season. That is, yes, 110% agree. So in terms of the minor league comment, this probably is a good time to kind of show what the minor league system is looking like. So if we go to 2021 top prospects, I think the biggest name to watch in terms of 2023 and beyond would be Drew Romo. So he's made a steady improvement up the boards since we started this save. He was solid in 2021. Really good in 2022. So this is a guy that will probably look to get into the major leagues at some point in 2023. And that's also why I'm probably not going to go really super long-term for a catcher, maybe 1 or 2 years. But Romo is definitely knocking on the door to get to the major leagues. As I said, 2023, probably the year that'll happen. Michael Toglia, another guy that we're going to move up to AAA, a first baseman. I mean, we kind of have our first base spot already filled up, but we'll see how Toglia develops, if he can be any better than Vlade, which I'm not really expecting. But if he can be, he can take a spot. That's fine. So he's another guy that we might see in 2023. Mateo Gil, I don't think we're going to see him in 2023, but he's actually been pretty solid. In 2021, he was okay. He was nothing special. But last year, he was a 3-win player. I imagine part of that was on the back of his a 768 OPS for a guy that can play in multiple positions in the infield. Like, he can almost kind of be a Tommy Edman. Well, he'd be lesser with the bat, it would seem like. But let's see what our head scout thinks. Yeah, I mean, our head scout seems to think that he's probably, yeah, okay. So with the bat, he probably wouldn't be anything special. But still, defensively, it seems like he could stick at some different positions. I don't think he could play shortstop at that range, but second and third base, I think he could definitely stick. So I'm kind of excited to see what Mateo Gil can do. He's 22 years old. Maybe he makes it up at some point this year, but he's probably more of a 2024 kind of guy. Colton Welker's there. Amador, he In his first save, the first year of the save, I should say, he put up a 106 WRC plus. We kept him in rookie ball for one more year, and that proved to be the right decision because he really came around a 952 OPS. So this is a guy that we'll watch for in the future as well. Only 19, so he's a few years out, but that's another name to watch. And then Zach Veen in Double-A this season, we called him up. Not as good of a season, and he's only 20 years old, so I'm going to keep him at Double-A again to start 2023, and we'll see if he can make the jump to Triple-A at some point during the season. But I'm still confident long term. I think his bat would play really well. I mean, this could potentially be an outfielder that we could look to put in our outfield at some point in the future. So that's promising. In terms of our first draft, Brandon, a lot of these guys really did not do very well. So Brandon Birdsell did not do very well at Double-A. So we are going to put him back to High A. I know he is 22 years old, but he really struggled at Double-A. So I need him to do a little bit better. Brandon Clark, who is still one of the better prospects in baseball, struggled in just A-ball, a 7.98 ERA, a 7.10 FIP. So we're going to keep him there again. He's only 19 years old, so he was facing pretty solid competition, so we'll see if he can bounce back this year. There's still a lot of time for him. Jack Leiter put together an okay season in Double-A, a 4.68 ERA, a 4.65 FIP, 106 strikeouts to 60 walks. He was close to a 2-win pitcher. I'm still confident in him, number 39 prospect on that list. Jack Leftwich is another guy there. Joseph Califoot, Brandon Smith, Tony Bullard. I'm probably more interested in this group out of another first baseman we have, Joseph Califoot. He was our 6th-round pick in 2021. He was a 2-win player, and he had a 900 OPS. By the way, because this is something I forgot to do, so I think this would kind of be good. If you have these guys that you don't want to be two-way players, kind of wondering, wait, why are they pitching and hitting? I don't want them to do that. This is something that I forgot to do. You just have to right-click on their name, go to Set Game Strategy, and then go down here and uncheck as use as a two-way player. So I just wanted to show that right there. That's why I left him unchecked, but I've done that for other players too. I did it for, I think Brandon Smith was, or maybe not Brandon Smith. Maybe it was Brandon Smith. I don't know. One of these guys, a couple of these guys are also pitchers in our system. So that's all you have to do is go to the game strategy, uncheck the use as two-way player, and then they'll only play offense or they'll only be a pitcher. They won't do both. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then in terms of our 2022 draft class, Rogelio Delgado, the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, he's making a steady climb of 4.04 FIP, 54 strikeouts to 14 walks. So he'll be one to watch out for. Probably not this year, but probably he's more of a 2024 kind of guy. And the rest of these guys, they were there's not really too much to write home about, I guess. I mean, Jimmy Dreher was okay for what he was. I think that he'll be fine long term, but that's about it. This was our international signing, so we're not going to hear from him for a while. Riley Stanford, excuse me. So these were his numbers. So nothing too much to write home about so far about our 2022 draft, but it just happened. We'll see what happens in the future. But with all that said, with all the comments out of the way, with everything out of the way, I am going to go take a look at the free agents. I will come back when I have some news, whether it's signings, whether I make a trade. So I will be back, and I will try to improve this team for 2023. Okay, we are back. It is February 12th, and your Colorado Rockies team for the 2023 season is ready to go, I think. It was a very busy offseason, our biggest offseason yet. Of course, we've only had 2, but this is definitely one of the top 2 biggest offseasons we've had so far in this series. The additions we've made 5 additions to the starting lineup, 2 additions to the starting rotation, 2 additions to the bullpen, 2 additions to our bench for a grand total of 11 new players on the Major League roster. We also got 1 new prospect. We made 4 trades, 5 free agency signings, and we've handed out 3 contract extensions all this offseason from the time I left you, which I think was December 2nd, to right now, February 12th, so about 2.5 months later. So I'm going to go through each and every one of them. I'm very excited with the team that we have constructed here in Colorado. Of course, the goal this offseason was to make this team a playoff contender. We weren't just going to be content playing around 500 baseball. We really wanted to make the moves necessary to just make the playoffs and maybe make some noise once we get there. Let's get Rocktober back, baby. So I'm going to go through all the additions. And I guess let's start with the starting lineup. So the biggest addition we made in the starting lineup was at shortstop, and that was we got Adalberto Mondesi in a trade with the Kansas City Royals. And in that trade, we also got Whit Merrifield, and we traded away Framber Valdez, Ryan Valade, Jacob Barnwell, Willie Brayu, and Colton Welker. So this was definitely a big boy trade. We traded away our two young corner infielders, Valade, who's only 23, Welker, who's only 25, along with Framber Valdez, who we got at the deadline and was a cost-controllable starter, in return for a shortstop and a right fielder. So basically, my reasoning for this, I decided to trade away Valade and Welker. So what I did basically was I looked at the statistics for Major League Baseball in 2022, and I wanted to see where our guys ranked in WAR at each position. WAR is not the end all be all, but I'd like to think that if you have guys that have higher WARs, you're probably going to perform better on the field, and it'll show in your record. And a lot of our guys were a little lower than I would have liked them to have been. So one of my main goals for at least a couple positions was trying to find guys that are kind of high up on that list. And Adalberto Mondesi, you can see he's been close to a 6-win player each of the past 2 seasons. He had to a 793 OPS in 2021, a 776 OPS in 2022. He steals a lot of bases. So if we go to just basic batting stats, you can see he stole 49 bases in 2021 and 46 in 2022. And fielding-wise, I guess it's not going to show those career fielding stats. That's what I want. Fielding-wise, he's a pretty solid shortstop. You can see a 13.9 zone rating in 2021, 13.3 in 2022. So it made sense to me at least. His eye's not great, but offensively, I think he'll be good enough. He has a ton of speed, and he's going to be really, really good defensively. You can see he's not really a leader, high grade, that's fine. And this was one of the contract extensions we gave out. So he had 1 year left on his deal. I kind of figured, maybe the Royals being the type of team that they are, they wouldn't want to give him a big money contract extension. So we gave him a 3-year contract extension worth $75 million. So he'll be being paid $23 million in 2024, $25 million in 2025, and $27 million in 2026. So that was one of the additions we made to the lineup. Of course, in the trade we also did get, if we go back to the lineup, we also got Whit Merrifield from the Kansas City Royals. This is another guy. He only had 1 year left on his deal, 34 years of age, and I was very happy to get him to be a part of the Kansas City Royals. He just had one of the best seasons of his career in 2022. He hit to an 845 OPS, 17 home runs, 73 RBIs. He's a guy that has some speed as well. Take a look at basic stats. You can see that he stole 23 bases in 2021, 16 a season ago, and he was a 4-win player who's going to be pretty solid defensively, 60 outfield range, 65 error. His arm's not super great, but it's average, and that'll be passable out in right field, and it does allow us to keep Charlie Blackmon in as the designated hitter. I did look to see if there was any interest in Charlie Blackmon on the trade market, and there really wasn't, so we're just going to keep him here for 1 more year, and we'll see if we can get him back to the playoffs here in what might end up being his final year in Colorado. But those were 2 of the moves that we made. So if we go back to not that one, if we go back to Mondesi and then the trade that we made, it was obviously tough to get rid of a guy in Valdez who he is an extreme ground ball pitcher. Of course, those tend to play well in Colorado, but I need to give up something of value to get something of value. So Valdez, a young cost-controllable starter, was number 1. Valade and Welker, it does hurt to get rid of them because it would have been cool to just kind of build alongside them for a while, but I think that there's going to be better options out there eventually. I don't think these are long-term options. So once again, you got to give up something of value to get something of value. And Welker and Valade, their value right now was pretty solid. And I thought it kind of made sense to parlay that value into 2 additions that I think could really, really help us make a big push this season. So those were 2 of the big additions we made to the starting lineup. The other big addition that we made to the starting lineup was Rhys Hoskins. We acquired him in a trade with the Philadelphia Phillies. He was on the trading block, and it did not require a big package. We traded them Thomas Farr, and we traded them Cooper Davis, who was one of our better prospects. And Rhys Hoskins, the reason he was so cheap was because he just had an absolutely dreadful year in 2022. 2021, you can see he was a 4-win first baseman. He hit 32 home runs, 95 RBI, scored 110 runs. Last season, it did not go very well for him. He only hit a 203, so he basically just hit right above the Mendoza line. 316 on base percentage. That's really out of character for him, and only a 370 slug. And the entire season was out of character for him. But I'd like to think that season will be an aberration. and we can kind of get him back to where he was before. And this was another guy we gave a contract extension to. You can see we signed him to a 3-year deal worth $30 million. So we're really banking on Rhys to become that first baseman he was in years past, not the one that he was in 2022. He'll be being paid $10 million each of the next 3 seasons. So we're locked into Rhys. We needed a power guy who could just be somewhat serviceable defensively, and that was where Rhys Hoskins was. That was the guy we decided to go after, and he is going to be in our starting lineup as our first baseman. He'll be hitting cleanup for us this season. I think he's going to really turn it around. We did make a big free agent signing for the catching position. We did get Christian Vasquez, so hopefully he'll help us stabilize the catching position until Drew Romo is ready, probably if not later this year, then early next year. You could say that he does want to be in the starting lineup, so he will be our starting catcher for most of the season, if not all of this season. But take a look at the contract. It's basically just a 2-year deal, so we have him for this year, we have him for next year. Next year, he might end up being a pretty expensive backup catcher, although we could have him start and then have Romo really take the full reins in 2025. That could maybe be something we do. And then a team option in 2025 with just a $1.5 million buyout. So it's really just a 2-year deal for one of the best defensive catchers in this game, and Christian Vasquez. So I was excited to get him. Hopefully he can get back to at least kind of close to what he did in 2021. We had an 848 OPS and he was a 4-win catcher. Because if so, this deal will be a steal. But even just a little better than that offensively, I think we all know he's going to be good defensively. So that was that. Our starting third baseman, I tried to, after a lot of the moves that I made, didn't have the most money available. So we kind of had to go bargain bin shopping. And that led us to acquire in another trade the Caleb Cowart with the New York Yankees. And in this trade, we got Caleb Cowart and Kyle Holder, and we traded Oscar Abreu and Jairo Diaz. Trading Diaz allowed us to free up just a little bit of money, which was helpful. And so Caleb Cowart, he is going to be our starting third baseman just for 2023. He's not going to be a long-term option. I tried to get Andujar. It was going to cost an obscene package to get Andujar, so it didn't make sense. So we just settled with Cowart, who's going to be our starting third baseman. You can see a 70 grade arm, 60 grade range, 50 grade error. So he should be pretty solid defensively. I'd like to think that he can do just enough offensively, playing half of his games in Coors to make this move worth it. He'll be batting 8th. We also got Kyle Holder, who, his expectation is to be a bench player. And I think with his defensive versatility, which is what I looked for in bench bats this offseason, I think he can do just enough with the stick and do very well defensively to make that move worth it to acquire him as well. We also made a couple other additions to the lineup. We got Nico Goodrum. He is a minor league free agent signing, but he is going to be on the major league roster, and I got him mainly because of his defensive versatility. You can see that he can play every position in the field, and he can play it at a pretty respectable level. He's really solid in the infield. His range in the outfield is not great, so you don't want to probably put him in center, but you could probably put him in a corner outfield spot, and you would be fine. So that's why I wanted to get Nico Goodrum. I just looked for guys that wanted to be a bench player so they wouldn't get upset as the season went on if they weren't starting. And I figured his bat, he's going to strike out a fair bit, but he has some speed, and I figured that this would be a good addition. Dom Nunez is going to be our backup catcher again, and he is fine with that because he does just want to be a bench player. And Sam Hilliard is going to be one of our backup outfielders this year, not Jonathan Daza. I'm going to keep Sam Hilliard because of his home run power and because of his speed and because he should be pretty solid in the outfield. So that is the starting lineup. That is the bench. And this is probably the lineup that we're going to go with, at least initially. Mondesi, Tapia, Merrifield, Hoskins, Blackman, Edman, Bader, Cowart, and Vasquez. And the other guy, I don't want to forget this, that we gave contract extension to was Raimel Tapia. He did not want a long-term extension. He didn't even really want a big money extension. He just was happy with 2 years at $4.8 million. So I figured that kind of made sense. It's a slight bump up, but if he is able to be a 3-win player again, like he was in 2022 and like he was kind of close to being in 2021, I'd be happy with that extension. So we have him locked up through 2025, which is good. So that was the starting lineup and the bench, and all those were the 3 contract extensions that I gave out. So pitching-wise, we added 2 to the starting rotation. The big name is Jacob deGrom. We signed him to just a 2-year deal at $22 million a year. I thought that the points that, maybe you'd want to watch out for his injuries, you want to watch him for, his ratings decreasing, those are valid concerns. So I only have him on a 2-year deal with some additional clauses as well. He was a compensation guy, so we lost a 3rd-round pick for signing him. But I figured this is probably the guy. The biggest issues last year. Well, one of the biggest issues was that our rotation was a little inconsistent outside of our top guys. So we really want to stabilize that, and we get a guy in Jacob deGrom, who I'm very excited to see what he can do as a Colorado Rocky. And we signed Mike Clevenger. Took a little more to get him. We got him on a 3-year deal, an average annual value close to $23 million. You can see that he's going to be making $20 million in 2023, and then $23 million each in the next 2 seasons. Hopefully he is a power pitcher, so hopefully his stuff does play well in Colorado. As a number 4 starter, I'm not expecting a whole lot, but I am excited to see what he can do for us in this year and beyond. So we have Burns, deGrom. I'm keeping Burns as our number 1 because he's been here longer, so I want to reward him with the opening day start, as stupid as that sounds. But I don't know. I just want to give Burns that nod. He is going to be our number 1. deGrom at 34 years of age. He's going to turn 35 in June. He can be a really, really good veteran number 2. Then we're going to have McCullers coming back, who had an outstanding season last year. Mike Clevenger, and then Brett Conine right now slotted in to be our number 5 starter. But we do have, of course, Rogelio Delgado moving up through the ranks. So Conine's time here. We'll see how long he lasts. In the bullpen, we made a couple of additions. We got Mason Fox as a cheap alternative in the Rule 5 draft. I think this guy could really be something special. We got him from San Diego. That was the team that he was with. He did really well in Double-A last year, so he's never pitched above Double-A, but I really think that he can be special. He's not a power pitcher or anything, but his ratings are really intriguing, so I want to give him a shot. And we also got Anthony Bass to be our long reliever this year, an extreme ground baller who sits 95 to 97. You can see that he's been pretty reliable in this save specifically. In 2021, he had a 3.54 FIP. He had 62 strikeouts to 23 walks and 72 innings, 67 appearances for the Marlins. And then last year for the Marlins, he did a lot better, 2.6 ERA, a little bit higher FIP, 42 strikeouts to 25 walks and 46 appearances. So we needed him as a long reliever because Ben Bowden, unfortunately, is going to be coming back from that torn rotator cuff that he got at the end of last season. He'll be out for 7 months, so basically the entire season in all intents and purposes. And you might be wondering, Ryan, why do I not see any L's? And that's a fair question. We don't have any lefties right now in the rotation or the bullpen. That might be an issue at some point, but as I said, going into 2022 in a vacuum, I'm usually not worried about going into a season without any lefties. In real life, I think it's more of an issue, but in this game, I think you can get by just fine because at the end of the day, it is a game. And if we need to acquire a lefty reliever or lefty starting rotation piece, we can do that at somewhere down the line. But for right now, I'm fine just going into the season with this, and we'll see what happens. So that was that. I think that's everything that... Oh, and I did trade. So I said I traded Jairo Diaz. I also traded away another pitcher. So if we go to the trade log, I made a trade with the Chicago Cubs, and we traded Jacob Barnes just to free a little bit more salary, just so we have a little bit of money to play with. And we got DJ Wilson, a 26-year-old center field prospect. He has 65 grade range. Seems like he could be pretty solid defensively. He has some speed. He could be okay with the bat. He's going to start the season with Albuquerque, and maybe he'll end up being a backup outfielder for us. If not this year, then maybe in the future. So I think that was everything that we did in the offseason. We take a look. We had a lot of money for free agents going into the offseason, and we spent it all. We now just have $1 million. And because of the extensions we gave out, we have $34 million for extensions. So that is that. The goal, of course, is not just to go 84 and 78 again. The goal is going to be to make the playoffs and make some noise when we get there. Because I think with this lineup, we have lost a little bit of power with the subtraction of Joey Gallo, but in its stead, we have added a lot of speed, which I think is something that we were sorely lacking in the past couple seasons. So I think that speed in the lineup will certainly help us. And we've added some veteran presences, and a guy like Whit Merrifield and Christian Vasquez, who I think is probably the best catcher we've had since we've started the save. I mean, we went through... He's our 4th catcher, basically, and this is going to be our 3rd season. We started with Elias Diaz, and then we got Roberto Perez, and now then we had Mike Zunino, and now we got Christian Vasquez. So I'm excited that this is I'd like to say this is probably one of the best lineup we've had just in terms of it coming it all together. As I said, the power might not really be there, especially when we go on the road. Rhys Hoskins is really going to have to carry the brunt of that in terms of the power production for this lineup. But I think everything else is fine. And I think the speed is definitely going to be a needed aspect for us. And then rotation, This has a lot of great names in it. Burns, DeGrom, McCullers, Clevenger, definitely the best rotation we've had. And even Brett Conine is an intriguing, ground ball pitcher since 94 to 96. I'm excited to see what he can do in a full season. Bullpen really hasn't been an issue for the most part, surprisingly, since we started this save. It wasn't, it was very early on, but we've gotten enough pieces. So I'm not really worried about the bullpen, and those guys are always kind of easy to find regardless. You can see team chemistry. We now have 3 captains in Nunez, Vasquez, and Goodrum. We have a few spark plugs in Edman, Kostashak, and, well, Bowden won't really be there. And Blackman is a prankster. So nothing bad there. No disruptive guys, no outspoken guys, no selfish guys, no unmotivated guys. And that is that. A couple more things, I suppose. So we did end up getting compensation for Joey Gallo. So you can see that Gallo signed with the Houston Astros, and his contract was a 7-year deal worth $170 million. I did not want to give him a deal like that. He was asking us for $30 million. Even 7 years at $24 million, I don't think I would have done. But we'll see. We'll follow along with him, I'm sure. We'll see how he does in Houston. But we did get a supplemental first-round pick, which is good. The Hall of Fame voting, I will show that really quickly. Where do I want to go? The Marlins owner died. How sad. That's a shame. But let's see. What else do I want to show? I guess compensation. So as I said, we did lose a 3rd-round pick for signing Jacob deGrom, but that's not too bad for a guy like him. I was not upset to do that. We also lost another 3rd-round pick for signing Mike Clevenger, but 2 3rd-round picks for signing guys like that. Hopefully that's not really a big issue. I was really hoping our owner could give us like a little bit more money, but I guess I can't be too greedy. $206 million. It's not that bad. I mean, at the end of the day, he is kind of controlling. He has a controlling fiscal personality, so I can't expect too much. But he does have a demanding grade for patience, so we got to try to make him happy. You can see our goals here. Play close to 500 ball, we should do that. Upgrade a catcher, we should do that. Improve our stolen bases, we should do that. We haven't extended Corey Knebel yet. That's going to be a wait and see. And increase attendance. If the team plays better, our attendance should be increased, so we should do that, and then make the playoffs. Barring injury, there's no reason this team should not make the playoffs here in 2023, especially because we won 84 games last year with the worst roster. So we should win it this year. Or not win it. We should make the playoffs this year. I did want to show the Hall of Fame voting results. I guess there they go. Hall of Fame voting results. So the only person that got enshrined this year was David Ortiz. You can see that Beltran in his first year got 49.1%. Jeff Kent dropped off the ballot, as did Jared Weaver, John Lockett, Jacoby Ellsbury, and Houston Street, who did not get any votes. That's a shame. But I think that is everything that I needed to show. Miracles cannot happen. Okay, so his dog got returned. Oh, look at that. Eddie the dog got returned. Good for them. So that was everything I need to show. So lineup, Mondesi, Tapia, Merrifield, Hoskins, Blackman, Edmund, Bader, Coward, Vasquez. Pretty solid lineup, and then we have solid bench pieces as well. The rotation, Burns, DeGrom, McCullers, Clevenger, Conine. The bullpen, Hicks, Knebel, Rosa, Fox, Doyle, Topa, Kostashak, Bass. And that is that. I'm excited to see what this team can do in 2023. That'll be the next episode, which will not be tomorrow, Thursday, April 8th. No video tomorrow. We'll be back on Friday with another edition. We can see how this team starts out the 2023 season. Yeah, just for the heck of it, we'll take a look at the preseason predictions. I kind of like to wait to do this until right before spring training because they do change a little bit. But we'll see what these say. And it says that we are going to go 83-79, score 820 runs, allow 819. So be a pretty even team. We're not supposed to have any of the top 10 pitchers or the top 10 hitters. We'll see if that changes through spring training. I think it will. But it does have us playing over 500 baseball, which at least that is a good sign. I said that 92 wins gets us to the playoffs. That'll be an 8-win jump from last year. And I definitely think that we can get 92 wins with this team. So let me know what you think. Answer those 2 questions that I had at the beginning of the video. If you want to, if you don't, I'm not your parent. You don't have to, but it would be helpful. And I want to thank y'all for watching. Thank you for all the support. We're getting close to 400 subscribers, which is really neat. So I want to thank y'all for the support. And I'll catch y'all guys again on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your days.